out of the anniversary years I've attended, I think this one is the worst, unfortunately. And just a lot of the things, unfortunately, this year didn't land for me. It just didn't really feel like an anniversary year to me in most aspects, which is a bit of a bummer. And it felt more like a Marvelized HHN, where everything feels like it was made for this formula and not to be something that could stand on its own.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the HHN Graveyard Show. In this episode, we are going to talk about HHN 25 from an anniversary perspective, as well as we're going to do a new game, which is an HHN Haunt Draft. In addition, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the exciting HHN related stuff that we did over the last couple weeks, but it's not just me talking about it. As always, I'm joined by my good friend SixBillium. Billy, how's it going?
It's doing great, Josh. How about yourself? It's always a good time when we're talking about HHN, especially
Yes, it is.
anniversary years. Well, maybe. We'll see.
We'll see. TBD. And very exciting news for us. We got another week or so, and we are in Hollywood for FanFest nights and to record a special episode of the HHN Graveyard Show there. Very exciting.
2 in the flesh. 2 episodes, 2 in the flesh together.
Yeah, we don't even live in the same region of the country. That's pretty good, I'd say.
Good thing we weren't, or I'm not. Good thing I'm not flying Spirit Airlines.
Yeah.
Too soon?
Yeah. Some timely jokes right there. Love it. Okay, well, before we get started, I want to talk about our social media accounts. So please go ahead and follow us there. We either post there a lot or we are going to post there a lot, hopefully. So for me, that's HHN Graveyard on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, and on YouTube, obviously, where hopefully you're watching this or listening to this. For Billy, that is at SixBillium on YouTube.
Yes.
He has some social media accounts. You need to bully him into using them. Please do.
Yes, please do. Please do.
Yes, but yes, definitely check out our social media. But with no further ado, we are going to jump right in. And first, we're going to talk. We both did some very exciting stuff, HHN related, even though we're obviously not in season this week or the last couple weeks. So first, Billy, why don't you tell me about your trip to the Lakeland Antique Mall?
Of course. So I was lucky enough to head to Florida this past week for a wedding. Congratulations, Nick and Aaron, if you're listening. Amazing wedding. But after that, I was able to stop at the Lakeland Antique Mall for the first time. You know, I lived in Florida for a decade and never actually made it down there. But they have tons of props from HHN and Universal, Disney, the whole and not just props, but collectibles and old merchandise as well. So even if you're not planning on buying anything, it's kind of just a good stroll down memory lane or even a museum type experience that you don't have to pay for. But I did spend some money on myself. I did expand my HHN collection. So let me show you all a few of the things that I got here. Showing my age, I had to get a little 2010 ticket standee from, I believe, Publix or the like.
Yeah, for audio listeners, it's a 5x5 square. HHN 20 years of fear. Buy tickets here. Very cool stuff
with Fear's Lantern.
Yes.
They did have some other bigger box things that I think were for like the Burger King displays. They had some from 2008, 2010, and I think 2011. But they were a couple $100, and frankly, they were kind of boring looking because they didn't really have any of the HHN graphics on it. It's all jargon. We also have this signed Tribute to Terror edition or comic book. Who are all the signatures? I have no idea. I can't even read my own handwriting, let alone most of these fancy signatures. So I'm going to have to do some research and report back to all of you on who this is signed by.
Yes, and this was from the 2023 tribute store. Yeah. They had 3 versions. Billy has the green version right there, that all the signatures. There was also a red version and then an orange version.
I also had the white one because the white one is the one that I had my picture on.
Oh, yes, that's right.
I have it somewhere in the back. I don't know if or it might be covered actually. And then the final item that I got was this Depths of Fear print. Forgive me for not remembering who the artist was, but they did a special run of prints.
Shelby something or other.
What was that?
Shelby something or other. Wendigots, I think is their username.
We'll edit it in for the. We'll edit it in the podcast. We'll voice over a plug or.
We're just gonna go as it is. One of the two.
Somewhere in my background, I believe I have another piece of art from them. I think
Mhm,
actually I can't tell if you see it, but I think that purple ghosty one in the back from
mhm,
2019 was
mhm,
in that same
mhm.
series as well. But Depths of Fear, highly underrated. Highly
Agreed.
underrated. So I'm glad to
Agreed.
see it get some
Mhm, mhm.
love as an individual haunt and not grouped into the year as a whole.
Yep, yep, and for audio listeners, it's a print from the 2019 house, Depths of Fear. It has the mouth breeder character that looks like they're menacing one of the crew members. So,
And
yeah, very cool art.
and it doesn't look like a character that wants to quit their job because that mask is so cumbersome to wear.
That's their expression under the mask.
Yeah.
You just can't see it.
So that was my excitement. But Josh, you got something maybe a little bit closer to an actual HHN experience than I did.
Right, right. Yes, I last weekend I went out to Horror Unleashed in Las Vegas for their Feaster Grievings experience. We talked about it a little bit. We speculated a little bit about it on the last episode of the podcast, and I'm very excited to say that it was a really good event. I was really pleased with it. So to start with, as you walk inside of the warehouse, you're given a little card. I'll probably show this on the YouTube version. But it is a card that has a bunch of numbered Easter eggs, and you are supposed to go through the warehouse. All of these eggs have numbers written on them, and they're hidden all around the warehouse. Some easier to find, some a little more difficult to find. And you go through and you write down which of the eggs are in which of the four locations, zones, scare zones, almost throughout Horror Unleashed. And then once you did that, you brought it back to the gift shop, and the person actually checked your answer. It wasn't just like a look at and just like, oh yeah, you're fine. They checked your answer, and you were allowed to pick an egg. They had a basket of golden eggs. Easter eggs that you would pick out of. You'd crack open your little golden Easter egg and you would win some sort of prize. And it ranged from, I've seen like 25% off at the gift shop, 50% off at the gift shop, a plush. What I ended up winning was my choice of keychain. So I ended up, this is, a $15 keychain. And so for audio listeners, it's a Jack keychain. It has Jack's face on it, and then it has the JACK little Jack in the Box in silver, steel, whatever the cheap version of silver is. That was a great little experience to add a little bit of kind of like replayability, redoability to this event that I've been to. This was my third time visiting. In addition, they had some characters that would walk around. There was a woman that she led around like a guy in like a torn up rabbit costume. And they both could talk. There was also the Feaster Bunny, which yes, he seemed to have some. I forgot to ask him about the HR Blood and Guts connection. I know, right? I'm sorry. and but I know that other people have, and he said that he was connected to them. He was, making this new movie, and he would walk around and you could ask him about his new movie. And in addition, they had an extra maze or an extra house at the back by the Premier House food area by Jack's Alley. It is, I think, reserved for like a VIP area, but I don't think they had very many of those VIP events. So they made it go outside, and there was a little bit of a maze through that had some characters, and then the Feaster Bunny at the end that you could get your picture with. And I'll include plenty of pictures and video for the folks that are watching on YouTube. But and of course they had extra food. The highlight was a chocolate egg that you cracked it open, and it had taro like gelato inside of it. It was
That
really
video
good.
you sent was incredible. Like this didn't look like it was just, throw together something to try and get a few more people in. And Josh, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was just regular admission, right? This wasn't like a separately ticketed thing.
Cheap admission too. They were running a sale on it. Yeah.
So you they're doing good down there. I know we talked that we were a little worried about the longevity when we first talked about Horror Unleashed months and months ago, but it seems like these events are really exciting and surprising to me, honestly. I thought they would just kind of I thought they would play it a lot safer, but it sounds like they are really swinging. And I mean, getting free merch too, that's good
Yeah.
merch, not just like throwaway backstock.
Right. Right.
Nice.
Krampus backstock or something. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we definitely talked about it. And I mean, obviously we went opening day and it was very crowded. Even though towards the end of the night, it wasn't that crowded. When I went in December for Krampus, it was dead. It was super dead. Like Jack and Chance wouldn't leave me alone after their show when I wanted to be left alone because there was no one else for them to talk to.
Aw.
But I know, it's just
Made
kind of
new,
sad.
made new
But
friends.
right. But it's like, what am I supposed to talk to you about for like 20 minutes? Like, I have a 5-minute conversation, but I don't have 20 minutes of things to say to Jack. But this time, like, there was lines for houses, even at closing time. I stayed till close. It was a crowded inside. They're not like shoulder to shoulder,
Mhm.
uncomfortable, but it was good. They did a really, really good job. I was
Good.
very pleased. So, yeah,
So that's
very excited with that.
two special events down. Each one's getting better. Third
Uh-huh.
time's the charm. I wonder how
Yeah.
crazy that could be.
Let's see it. Let's see it.
Yeah.
Horror Unleashed. Cool. Okay. Yeah, that is definitely the excitement from us. Next week we'll be able to report on some of the construction at in Hollywood, as well as some of the fan fest stuff when for like how we think it might apply to Horror Nights.
Send your
But
positive vibes for Hollywood Drift soft opening
yes,
our way,
yes.
please.
I was telling Billy I had a dream last night that had happened. So let's make my dream a dream, not a dream, and a reality. But
Josh can't fly to Missouri and go on Time Traveler whenever he wants, so we need to satiate him some way. Time
right.
Traveler Vin Diesel edition.
Right. The San Francisco to Los Angeles flight is a little easier than San Francisco to Missouri. But cool. All right. So moving on to a little bit of excitement for our little game segment. We are gonna do a house draft. So any of my sports fans know like fantasy football drafts. We're gonna do something similar. And for those of you that don't know sports or don't like sports, you should like sports. But if you don't, basically we're gonna take turns and we're gonna select a house. If someone picks the house that you wanted to pick before you can pick it, too bad. You got to pick a different one. And we're going to snake draft. So the first person that picks, which will be me, I'll pick first. Billy will pick 2. Then I will pick 2, and Billy will pick 1. We'll pick 3 apiece. When we pick each of these houses, we're going to give a brief explanation about why we selected them. And then at the end, we're going to make an argument for why our house lineup is better than the other person's. So not only are we thinking about just like the best houses overall, we're thinking about how they fit together. You don't want nothing but goofy houses. You don't want nothing but serious houses. You want a little bit of mix of everything to make a cohesive event. We're going to do this again in the future, but today we're going to give it a theme of Jack versus Oddfellow in celebration of Jack and Oddfellow, Chaos and Control. Each of these houses that we select are going to contain either Jack or Oddfellow or be closely related to them. Does that make sense, Billy?
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
cool. All right, let's get started. So we discussed this before. I'm going to go ahead and pick first, then Billy's going to pick a pair, and then I'm going to pick 2, and then Billy's going to pick 1. So we are going to start with the first pick of the 2026 Jack versus Oddfellow draft. I am going to select, drum roll please, I'm going to pick Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins.
Good choice.
Yep.
The true correct answer in this situation.
Right. So the idea is Jack versus Oddfellow. That is what we're going for here. So if we're going to do that, I need a little Oddfellow. Jack has plenty of iterations throughout the year. So I'm going to pick the Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins house from 2023 from Horror Nights 32. The house was really, really good. It did a very, a circus theme, but done a little bit differently and a little more interesting, I think, than in the past. The Dr. Oddfellow actors were always doing an amazing job. I still remember some of the clowns that would pop out and, ticket please, or whatever they would say at the beginning. The circus tent facade was among my favorite of any of the sprung tent facades. As you walk towards it and it's glowing, it was so cool. So I think that gives me a really good base of Dr. Oddfellow for my little 3-house lineup here. Okay, Billy, with the second overall pick, what are you going to select?
All right, with the second overall pick, since you went with the quintessential Dr. Oddfellow house, I think I have to go with what might be considered the quintessential Jack the Clown house with 2006's Psychoscarapy Maximum Madness.
Ooh.
This is before my time, so I cannot fully comment on how it was, but there hasn't been a person I haven't talked to about the olden years of HHN that hasn't mentioned this haunt. My wife, Amanda, this was her first year going, and she loved this haunt. She got scared out of her mind countless times in it. This was the one that kind of introduced, at least to my memory, the idea of Jack's maniacs and Jack being this ringleader, this cult leader, whatever you want to call him, and kind of infecting others with his madness, is I believe how the terminology was used in the description of the haunt. But we got to go for a classic Jack Con and a classic HHN series and Psychoscarapy as well. It's the
Mm,
best of both worlds.
mhm,
And now for number three,
mhm,
going again before my time, I'm going to go off of something that may or may not have spawned a forum based off of it, but
mhm,
2004's Horror Night Nightmares. This was, as I recall, the original icons captured, or this was the original
mm,
icon mashup haunt,
mhm.
with each of the big four at that point in 2004 getting a little bit of time to shine. Was it? Because it was Jack, Caretaker,
Director. Right.
Director, and then Eddie finally got
Mm,
his
mhm,
time in the spotlight after
mhm.
being from 2001.
Right.
So, just a real good scare fest, no holds barred. Hopefully, what I wanted icons captured in 2021 to be the
Right.
precursor, if you will.
Yep. Yep. The original icons. Yep. Good choice. Yeah. Give
Did
you a
the
little.
Divines say icons?
That's the real question. Yeah, I bet they didn't. So who wants to go in a house that doesn't have icon vines?
Yeah, I don't know. It's beyond me. All right, number four.
Okay, I am gonna go with my number 4 pick, my 2-2. I'm gonna go with a little bit of an interesting one here that I don't think you are gonna expect me to pick, or maybe you will expect me to pick because I have a type. This is gonna be Jack's 3 Dementia from Universal Studios Singapore.
Okay,
Uh
there we
huh.
go.
Okay. I mean, as the resident Asia event lover, I gotta pick it. I didn't go. This is way before I was even thinking about going to Singapore. Back from 2014, if I remember right. Yeah, 2014. So the reason I went with this one. So first, it gives a little bit of like a little not Orlando centric. I don't want my event to be too Orlando centric. So add a little bit of like differences there. But
Mhm.
more importantly to me is that this is a 3D house, and so I think that what I didn't want my event to be too just looking the same. A lot of the aesthetics can kind of merge together in a lot of these houses unless you're very careful to make sure that they don't. And so I wanted a little bit of kind of like bright pop colors, a little bit kind of goofy, a little bit more like classic funhouse versus the kind of more grittiness of the Oddfellow Funhouse Circus experience. Plus, so this is very similar. What the Jack's Funhouse and Clownovision or whatever the
Yeah.
2007 was. There's a lot more media around this one and then the Jack's Funhouse from 2007. So it's a lot easier for me to say like I want to do this one, but
Mhm.
I think that would have been another good choice for my collection too. But I'm gonna go with 3 Dementia, Jack's 3 Dementia from Universal Singapore for my next pick. And then I pick again for my 5th pick, which is 3-1, round 3, pick 1. This time I'm going to go with the one that Billy didn't pick, which was Icons Captured. So
Okay.
a similar reason. Really, I wanted, although this draft is specifically focused on Oddfellow and Jack, I wanted to capture the, no pun intended, I wanted to kind of capture the idea that this character is not just a standalone character, that these characters are embedded in a larger narrative and a larger kind of tapestry. And so I think Icons is the one that I have done that I think really illustrates that there are more than just these characters, and you know that this narrative is one of the reasons why we love this event so much. So I think that will wrap up my draft. Billy, what are you going to pick with the 6th overall pick, Mr. Irrelevant, as it were, for this draft?
My final pick is going to be one that we are actually going to talk about this episode, I believe. Jack presents 25 years of monsters and mayhem. Horror Night Nightmares was kind of the icon anniversary haunt. This is the everything else anniversary haunt, the original haunt, getting brought back into the spotlight. And what I liked about this one, without spoiling too much, and what it did different from anniversary haunts, is that it kind of blended the properties together. It wasn't just a linear experience. You kind of saw Jack's madness, again, using that terminology, kind of bleeding into different properties. You saw the nightingales crashing into the castle from Gothic, for example. You had these little transition scenes where Jack's maniacs would pop out in between properties, and then the finale, I believe, was really the only big Jack centric scene that we've actually gotten in a haunted house, with tons of Jack mannequins. Felt very much like a Halloween 2022 version of the facade of Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. If you can kind of imagine combining those two, those are the vibes. Very spooky, and it was cool to see some Jack do something that actually felt scary and actually had my skin kind of jittery, and not just the haha funny or blockbuster slasher kills. So that's where I'm going to round it up at.
Great. I love it. Okay. Now that we have drafted our houses, let me give a brief recap. So with the first overall pick, I picked Dr. Oddfellow's Twisted Origins. With the second overall pick, Billy selected Psycho Scarapy Maximum Madness from 2007, or Twisted Origins from 2023, Horror Nights 32. With the first pick in the second round, Billy selected Horror Night Nightmares from HHN 14, 2004. With the fourth overall pick, 2-2, I picked Jack's 3 Dementia from HHN Singapore 4, which is 2014. With the first pick in the third round, 5th overall, I selected Icons Captured from HHN 30, which is 2021. And then Billy, with the 3-2 pick, round 3, number 2, selected 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem from HHN 25, which was 2015. Okay, Billy, give me a brief explanation of why you think your house lineup is superior to mine. What were you going for, and do you think you accomplished it?
It's what 2015 couldn't do as a whole. It was a crowd pleaser that was well-rounded. It's fun, it's scary, it's not the best obvious pick, Mr. Number 1 Dr. Oddfellow that everyone knows, but it's got a great balance of scares with the sections of Monsters and Mayhem and Horror Night Nightmares. Psycho Scarapy kind of brings Jack to the forefront, and it brings that fun factor, and that was kind of the platform, I feel, that really made him more than just a returning icon. That, I feel like, is the moment when Jack was cemented as the face of HHN, or would be cemented as the face of HHN for years to come. Plus, you have tons of different environments. We're not just looking at carnivals. We've got tons of locations from original haunts from the past 25 years. We've got the icons' domains themselves. And of course, Psycho Scarapy, Shady Brook. If for those of you who have never seen a Shady Brook facade, is one of the best. Every single time, it is just a sight to behold.
Which is the Shady Brook facade of it at Winter? Is that Recollections?
Yep, that is Recollections.
Okay. That's got to be like a top 5 facade, I think.
It is.
Man, it's looked really good.
It is for sure. As I say, every time we've seen Shady Brook since its inception. The first time it came around in, was it 2003? It was in the Discovery Center, so it was just very just kind of you had a gate. But once they moved it into the sound stages, we had it 3 times since then. Maximum Madness, Echoes of Shady Brook in 2010, and then Recollections.
Yeah.
It's just so good. So if you want great facades, all right, Josh, what you got?
Right. Okay. So I will certainly admit that I think Billy's maybe has a little bit more like deep cuts. maybe for the more discerning tastes out there, but not everyone has just as discerning of a palate as Billy for haunted houses. Mine, I think, is a much more approachable event, which I think is what we're really going for here. So start off with Icons Captured. So it's a beautiful introduction to the larger collection of all of these characters. Yes, sure, we talked a lot about this last episode where, yeah, they're all just doing their signature kills. But if you haven't experienced all of these in the past, it's a perfect introduction to all of these characters to be able to explore inside of Fear's Lantern and just run into all these characters we love so much. Then, once you get done with Icons Captured in my event, then you go into and you start to learn a lot more about these two characters that we're focusing on, Jack and Oddfellow. So Twisted Origins really sets the stage for the Dr. Oddfellow kind of character, as well as gives you in one of the little Easter eggs that was on the wall, it gives you the origins of Jack, which is pretty cool. So it's a Jack house, even though it's not a Jack house. And then second, Jack's 3 dementia is also going to put you in the twisted mind of Jack, give you that kind of more signature goofy carnival aesthetic, and break up the kind of the dark griminess of my first 2 haunts. So I think my lineup is a beautiful introduction that you don't need to have been going to the event for 20 years to experience, to give you lots of different facets of the event and really kind of start you down the rabbit hole that Billy and I are already way too deep down.
Yep. Sound off in the comments.
Who won? Who won? And why did I win?
And why did I win? Let me know. We'll talk about this every podcast episode from here on out. So we're both very competitive. So
true. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but yeah, okay. Well, that is going to be our little drafts here. For weeks that we don't have a lot of speculation, which there hasn't been a ton of speculation since we started. We'll do a lot more like that. I guess I should say the one interesting thing that came out, just as a brief aside, was Orlando did release the some of the coolest merchandise that they have in a while of these little figures for Jack and Oddfellow, similar to the stained glass they did last time, but these are little figures. They're pretty cool, no?
I've got something to say about this. Yeah.
Okay, hit me.
So I've always said that HHN as an event is criminally underutilized product.
The event itself,
the haunts, the scare zones. Mm-hmm. There's demand for HHN stuff that isn't just HHN. And now we're getting these, we kind of got it last year with the stained glass, like you said, but now we're getting acrylic figures for each of the haunted houses as they're announced, or at least each of the original haunted houses as they're announced. I can't remember what the exact wording is.
I hope it's original. Mm-hmm.
But, we're getting haunt specific merchandise, which I can't remember the last time we had more than, we were lucky if we had a handful of pieces each year. And now we have the signature collectible is, haunt specific. So
right.
I feel like I've been heard. I just wanted to say that.
Yeah, I'm excited. Yep, I had someone pick up them for me, the first couple. So I'll have them here on my desk before too long. But yeah, good for you, Universal. Keep it up. We love it.
You earned my money this time, I suppose.
All right. Okay. Now moving on to our HHN 25 recap. So like we did last time, we are going to spend, we have about 30 or so minutes left in the show, about 30 minutes or so talking about the Halloween Horror Nights 25 event, which is 2015, which was the last anniversary year before the last normal anniversary year before 30, which we talked about last time. I did not visit, so we're going to really be relying on Billy's knowledge here, which is okay. And I think let's start off with the overall theme or the overall feeling of the event. Billy, what was the vibe that you got? Some overarching things that you liked? Do you think they did stuff better than 30, worse than 30? How do you feel about the event?
Out of the anniversary years I've attended, which would be 2010, 2015, and 2021, I think this one is the worst, unfortunately. I also think this is one of the worst years of HHN as a whole, which again is not necessarily a bad thing. A bad year of HHN is still a joy to go to. There is one thing that this year I think did better than any of the other 15 that I've been to. We'll talk to that a little bit later because I don't want to spoil it. But overall, this was 2000 but bigger, more or less. This was Jack as the ringleader in charge. I can't remember exactly when they did the announcement, but this was a fairly early announcement. I don't remember if it was as early as Chucky, where it was right after the previous year had ended, but it was pretty early on in the season. You saw Jack's silhouette strolling down that hallway before his face popped up and he said, "I'm back," or
Didn't
something like that.
they sent a media gift like really early, didn't they?
I believe so.
Mm.
So this was, this was Jack's anniversary year. There was no more fear. There was no other icons. This was just Jack the Clown. And bigger, unfortunately, is not always better. This was the
Mm.
first year to have the first year to have 9 haunted houses. One of them being an actual repeat or a carbon copy repeat. And just a lot of the things, unfortunately, this year didn't land for me. It's like they tried to go bigger and badder and crazier instead of just, keeping it simple, keeping with what had worked. A lot of the fan service stuff seemed to be brought back just for the sake of fan service and not because it would be something that was really cool or really compelling. The scare zones overall, as somebody who's not really a scare zone guy, were also really lackluster. You could have put pretty much any of these except for Icons HHN in basically any other event year and they would have fit just fine. And it just didn't really feel like an anniversary year to me in most aspects, which is a bit of a bummer. It didn't feel like a celebration. It felt more like what's the word? Marvel, almost like a Marvelized HHN, almost like the MCU, where everything feels like it was made for this formula and not to
Mm.
be something that could stand on his own, if that makes
Okay.
sense.
Like it didn't have it felt like corporatized. It didn't have like the passion
Yeah.
or like the
And
kind of the rawness of earlier
I don't
ones.
maybe I think that's a good way to put it.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that there wasn't passion
Oh,
behind it.
sure, sure.
I think it was definitely just misguided. It was just
Okay.
Jack, 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 and the supporting ideas weren't necessarily there. We just talked about, my draft, 25 years of Monsters and Mayhem. Great haunt that
That's a
put
good one.
Jack the
Mhm.
Clown in the spotlight. Didn't just act as a welcome to scary type anniversary house where you got room, 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 and then it's over. It was a very good, cohesive uh, journey through HHN's history, and I loved it for that. But then you've got some original haunts like Body Collectors Recollections and Run Blood, Sweat, and Fears, where you're introducing 2 properties from the past. With Body Collectors, you're merging together uh, Body Collectors and Psychoscarapy, and you're just kind of rehashing some scenes that had already been done. Good scenes, but there wasn't too much in my mind that was really memorable about that. We'd just seen the few of those scenes in 2008 and then again in 2010 for the last anniversary year. And now we're bringing them back for 2015. Blood, Sweat, and Fears. I was an Eddie stan growing up. I thought Eddie was the coolest person in the entire world. Never got to see his time in the spotlight. So when when I heard Run was coming back, I was like, it's going to be so gory and grisly. And instead, it was the comedy house of the year.
Don't
And it
talk too much about it. We're gonna go into a lot more
yeah,
detail about these.
don't worry.
Mhm.
We will. I got
Okay.
plenty to say.
Okay.
So it didn't seem like they fit the characters, they did fit the themes, you know?
Okay. I guess out of curiosity, my one question for this is
Yes.
how much how m- so in 2021 for 30 we talked about how Jack would like roam the park on his little go-kart and yell at people through megaphones. I'm curious, did he have like an did it feel like it was his event like it did to maybe a small extent in HHN 30, or was he pretty much contained just his like house and his scare zone?
No, it did very, very much feel like it was Jack's event.
Mm.
I don't remember the roaming hordes as much, but I know there were a few roaming hordes that would go throughout
Mm.
the park, and
Mhm.
they had the Jack the Clown, or they have the Jack's
Okay.
Maniacs makeup on. Um, there was the Carnage Return stage show as well, which
Mhm.
was set up over by Mel's drive-in, Mel's die-in, sorry. So whenever you were walking down the park, or walking around the park, you could just see this giant Jack the Clown face in the background
Okay.
when you would walk, at least from the front. It very much did feel like a Jack year.
Okay.
Everything else didn't necessarily support that it was Jack, if that makes sense.
Okay.
It didn't, it felt like, how do I phrase this? 2023 was very good with Dr. Oddfellow. Even though it wasn't an anniversary year, you could kind of feel that presence in
Mhm.
each zone, and that was intentional. In 2015, they were like, "Oh, yeah, there's some Jack stuff. You got the face paint, and this was a house that was here in the past, but doesn't really have any relation to Jack. It
Mm.
was just some ideas.
Okay.
It was the first. It felt like a first draft. Maybe that's the best way to put it. It felt like
Mm.
a first draft of what are some ideas that we think could work. All right, let's ship it. We
Okay.
can run with that.
Okay. Maybe a little rushed, maybe a
Yeah,
little.
rushed.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Okay, cool. That sounds, yeah, let's dig into a little bit more of these houses that you started talking about. So, I want to start off with 25 years. So this is the house I think out of this year that I've watched POVs of the most. Because not only is it Jack, is it this icon that I really like, but it's also a lot of these like fan favorite houses from years past. So first, can you walk me through some of the characters or some of the properties and the houses that were represented in this house? And then
Yes.
I'd love to hear your overall thoughts about it, of
All
course.
right, let's see if I can remember based off the top of my head from beginning to end. Um, First off, the facade for this was gorgeous. Giant, like painted wooden Jack the Clown face with like these spinning totems of all of the icons with some original artwork of them at the time. Like one of the best facades just for pure nostalgia factor overall. Once you walked through Jack's face, you went into I believe it was Scary Tales 2008 scene, where you had Goldilocks and the bear. You had HHN Bear pop out on the right.
There, 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 there.
But more impressive was the puppet that was eating Goldilocks or someone. It was almost like one of the American Werewolf puppets, and lunged at you, and that was a great scare. Then you went into The Forsaken from 2011. It was the tilted ship scene, which arguably was the worst scene in that haunt. It was just the most gimmicky, but it was nice to see the costumes brought back. A lot of people in that year complained about the glowing eyes of the costumes, and I think they fixed that for 2015, or I think they toned it down so it didn't look as corny. So it was kind of like they got to do a do-over in some sense.
Mm-hmm.
After that, you went into, it wasn't necessarily Scream House, but you went into kind of this gothic mortuary uh pathway that was kind of like the caretaker, Scream House. There was a Cindy Kane scare, which I think was the first Kane scare in a haunted
Ooh.
house. But there was also portraits of Jack the Clown as you're walking through this manor. So it was kind of a dead end, legendary truth, Scream House, kind of all mash up, all of the gothic, suburban or old school suburban type haunts of HHN kind of blended into one scene. From there, you went into a Universal Monster section. You had Frankenstein's laboratory, a nice Wolfman scare. I think there was a mummy section, but this felt very Bride of Frankenstein lives in its scenic design. Hello, Chino. Do you want to be on the podcast? Um, I'm a very good Universal Monsters that felt clunky in a good way is almost the best way to describe it. It felt kind of like it felt disjointed but celebratory. It wasn't the straightforward narratives we got from, the five haunts that would come later on. After that, Castle Vampire 2004, the classic bedroom scene that's been repeated time and time again. Ghost Town, Revenge of the Tooth Fairy, where you're walking through the bed or
Mm-hmm.
walking around the bed at the very beginning. Something very similar to that, um, where the vampire's on the bed lunging out at you. And then you go into the Gothic corridor, which is one of the best effects HHN has done. This is the church scene where you're walking overhead the sermon or whatever is going down below. If you look down, which is actually above you, or the set is actually above you, but reflected from a
That's
mirror,
cool.
so it looks like you're walking in the air.
Yeah.
You can see uh, the little church pews down below, and you can also see a tank that has crashed through the wall, and these
Oh
little
my.
nightingale figures, which are so adorable. Could hardly tell the detail because they were so small. But it also had a great scare with one of the gothic gargoyles hiding behind the pillars, and they would pop out at you. So
Mhm.
good. And then that transitions obviously into the Nightingale's Blood Prey scene from 2011. Not quite as good as The Haunt, but still very good. Um, the Haunt didn't really put the Nightingales in the spotlight. They kind of hid in the shadows as the scares. This had a nice mannequin that was right there. So you got a good look at how crazy and scary and terrifying they looked at. Excuse me. And then from there, you went into crazy chainsaws, for lack of a better term. It was kind of this underground hallway that I believe was supposed to be Havoc from 2010, which then kind of merged into a psychoscarapy Home for the Holidays strobe light chainsaw Santa room, before finally ending in that Jack the Clown room that I mentioned earlier, where it feels
Mhm.
like you're in Jack's tent. There's mannequins of him everywhere. You don't know which one's real. You don't know
Mhm.
which one's fake. It was actually a very bright room, especially for haunted house standards, with only occasional flickers of darkness, which made it that much more unsettling
Hmm.
because it felt so normal, but you knew it wasn't. And then you would exit the soundstage, and there was a little post-credit scene, I guess, that had Meaty Meats coming out with the chainsaw from a bunch of props that were just set up against the soundstage. This was in soundstage 20, I believe, 21. And this was the first time that HHN officially, I think, ever did an Uber haunt. No, it wasn't that. It was the longest at the time. Walking Dead was the first Uber haunt, I think, but this one was just as long. So it was a big one. I think this was also only the second time that HHN had a soundstage haunt have props after you exited the soundstage.
Right. Mhm.
But very good. There was a few transition scenes of, Jack's dressing room, where the maniacs would pop out in between some of these scenes that I don't quite remember as much. But you kind of had, I guess, almost these puppet theater vibes. And if you just
Mm.
have these little transition corners where you could tell it was like a theater space. And then
Yeah.
you get a little Jax Maniac would pop out with the
Mhm.
face paint and do a
Mhm.
little laugh before you went into the
Mhm.
next scene.
Yeah, that's a great walkthrough. I guess did it flow? I guess when we're talking about any of these mashup houses, the question that always comes up is, are they just scene with no like real connection,
Mhm.
or it seems like they like tried to like kind of blend them together.
Yes.
Did it land? What was it? A good flow?
Yes. I believe this one had one of the, if not the best flow of any of the like
Mhm.
kind of mashup type haunts that I've seen. And not just in the way that it transitioned, but also just in the scare tactic themselves. You had this great puppet scare, like as the very first thing that you saw, and then you kind of went quieter and subdued for a few rooms, and then you get to gothic, halfway through, and there's that right in your face gargoyle scare, and then you get the loud chainsaw type experience, and then at the finale you're in this unsettling quiet type atmosphere. It balanced everything very well
Mm.
instead of just being all of the best HHN scares that all feel like HHN scares packaged into one.
Mhm.
Atmosphere, I think, is the name of the game with this one.
Right. This is one of the houses that I really, really wish I could have done. I think this is like a top 10. Like, man, I really wish I could have gotten to do this house. Regardless of how you feel about 2015, like this one seems like a real winner.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
think this is kind of what I think this is what an anniversary haunt should be. Something that not only celebrates the past, but also puts a little bit of a spin on it. Nobody wants to see something that's been done exactly the same way it's been done. An American Werewolf. Maybe some too do for uh that haven't experienced it, but
Right.
after going to the event for so long, or even those designing the event for so long, it was exciting to see them just take that little spin. same
Right.
with the Forsaken. Do that one thing that maybe didn't necessarily work the first time, and just
Right.
have the ability to
A
tweak
second
it, to
try.
make those
Mhm.
little adjustments.
Mhm.
Nothing crazy, but just enough that it fit. It worked.
Right. Makes sense. Cool. Okay, moving on to the next one. So, like I mentioned for last week or last episode, we're going to talk about just the houses that were specifically like more like anniversary focused. So that is in general these kind of look back, yeah, kind of retrospective houses like 25 years or like icons from 2021, but also kind of continuations of long running franchises in Horror Nights history. So next, we're going to talk about Run, Blood, Sweat, and Fears. So Billy kind of alluded to this earlier, how he didn't like this house. So Billy, why don't you tell me why you didn't like this house or why you thought it was okay, and then give me like maybe a scene or two that maybe you did think worked.
Yeah. So, for those of you who don't know either of the franchises that this haunt were, Run was originally Eddie's first haunt, Eddie Schmidt's haunt in 2001. It was this chain link style gauntlet, where they would actually move the chain link walls and all of this stuff. Records are a little bit muddy. The further back you go for HHN, and with 9/11 unfortunately happening weeks before 2000 event or 2001's event was set to happen, they had to make changes like that. So Run didn't appear as its final form, if you want to call it that,
Hmm.
but it was meat and potatoes, chainsaws, gore, chain link fences, like that's what it was. It was designed to just be something pure, primal, and scary. Um, Eddie returned in 2006 for Run Hostile Territory, which was essentially just a hostile haunt without the name hostile in it.
Hmm.
So a little gorier, a little more gross, but the same type of scary concept. Hellgate Prison appeared in 2004 and was exactly what it would sound like based off of the name. This was HHN doing your typical type of asylum haunt, except for focusing a little more on the prison guard aspect and less on the inmate aspect. Um, so what do you take so Hellgate Prison sounds like, a well, the house was very well received. Doesn't that just sound like an incredibly detailed and vibrant set? Think back to Hellblock Horror and how beautiful those sets were and how detailed. They weren't bad, but they
Cinder
weren't that
blocks.
exciting. Yeah,
Hmm.
they could have been worse, but could have been a lot better.
Right.
And then you take Run, Blood, Sweat, and Feet, or you take Run and you add it into one of the most bland HHN locations that you
Yeah.
could have chosen. And
Mm.
it unfortunately just did not work very well. There were a few cool scenes. My favorite one in the haunt. So just I guess to give a little backstory on this one, this was like an 80s style game show, where the
The
contest,
Running Man.
yeah, Running Man.
Hmm.
This one played more towards the comedy. This was like a what's the word? Like a nationwide or a nations of the world were the assassins, were the reapers that were trying to take the contestants down. So like your typical mashup haunts, each nation had their one individual room or their one individual scene where they were trying to take you out as the guest. So I can't remember them in order, but I think there was, off the top of my head, you had Japan, Egypt, Germany, Canada, Italy. Those are the ones that are sticking out to me. My
Mm.
favorite scene in this haunt is one that doesn't actually very reflect very well in any of the POVs. I believe this was supposed to be the Egyptian room. You're going in
Mm.
the bathroom, and there's just bathroom stalls that are closed, and you would have this one like mummy dude that would just come back and forth from him, and they had like the swiping motion of the knife and just a
Mm.
faint scream. It was
Uh-huh.
the one scene that was actually very scary and very
Okay.
good. Um, the Japanese had their like geishas with like razor fans that there was a silhouette of them slicing and dicing before they would pop out. The Italians had this almost like Roman Empire type
Ooh.
gladiator type scene where it was kind of
Mhm.
dark, had shields everywhere. I think one of them was the Terra Coronta shield, if I
Okay.
remember correctly.
Uh-huh.
Um, but it wasn't anything super memorable in my mind. Everyone loved Canada because it was the wood chipper. They had the chainsaw and they were throwing
Mhm.
someone in a wood chipper, but
Right.
it wasn't it was such a small scene that they couldn't really celebrate that much in it. Germany had a fun scene where they were in the electrical room of Hellgate. So they're walking back and forth on the platform and they got the little sparkers. And then, yeah, there's not too much that I remember about it, unfortunately. You know, there was, I think, 3 or 4 cell block areas that were your transition scenes where you would go to the next part, but a lot of concrete walls, not a lot of personality
Mhm.
that could shine in the set design when you've only got, the most obvious representation of these countries as their
Right.
scenic. Canada just
Mhm.
has Canadian flags everywhere, and it's
Right.
like, oh, I wonder what this could be. It was not as imaginative as I had hoped.
Okay.
And while there were parts of it that were fun and a few scary parts, I think it just it lost its way. It was a partnership that should not have been a partnership,
Mhm. Mhm.
and
Mhm.
Eddie wasn't even there, and
Mm.
it was run in name only.
Right.
Did not give me the same excitement or the heebie-jeebies that I got when reading about the originals. Excuse me. And if I recall, there was a small exit scene after you officially exited the haunt, where they had some chainsaws and you were walking through some chain link fence. But it
Mhm.
was very much just a 25-foot little exit. This was in the disaster queue, so you exited kind of like in the very back of the pavilion, and then you just had to walk all the way back up front to San
Right.
Francisco.
Right. Yeah, no, makes sense. Okay, let's get our last one. We're running out of time here, so let's keep it brief.
Yep,
Um,
gotcha.
Body Collector's Recollections. What do you remember? Maybe a favorite scene or two, and how'd you feel about it?
Well, I think we've just discussed best facade, top 10
Right,
for sure.
beautiful. Mhm.
Very good haunt that played with silence. The body collectors themselves are monsters who do not speak, but they do a lot of killing. So putting them in this environment, you've got the silence of winter and you've got the silence of the body collectors. That made for a very unique sound design. Well, the rooms themselves, in my mind, weren't very impressive, and it was a lot of the design and flow was very boring to me. There was some very memorable parts as well. Right at the beginning, after you would walk into Shady Brook in the office reception area, you would go through this covered hallway that was surrounded by trees on either side, trees and windows on either side. And there was an inmate who was lying down and would reach out at you and it would spray water and do the shattered glass effect. And that would lead into this solitary confinement padded wall room, which made it difficult to find where you were going.
Mhm.
The operating theater has been shown so many times,
Yeah,
still a
cool.
great scene.
Mhm.
Right before that, there was a really cool scene where the silhouettes of the body collectors, like harvesting and doing their thing, was projected onto a hanging sheet. So that
Mhm.
was a cool show don't tell type of moment.
Mhm.
But then after that, it kind of lost me. You go into this big keyhole room where there's just a lot of hanging body parts and gore for the sake of gore.
Mhm.
Then the finale is the dungeons underneath Shady Brook, which kind of just look like your typical Roanoke Blood Moon type finale. Just did not really work. Also, the body collectors themselves in that scene, I think they were supposed to be like the assistants to the assistants, but they were like they like squeaked. Their sound
Hmm.
design was like they sound like like it was
Beavis
just
and
not
Butthead or something?
yeah, not a very memorable way to end. Scenic was very good for most of it. Atmosphere was top notch. Some good scares, some good effects, but it wasn't scary. And it should have ended much better than it did. After
Right.
about halfway, you're like, I think I get this gimmick. And then they did nothing really new to advance it for the last half,
Mhm.
and it
Mhm.
kind of was
Mhm.
ready to be over. But did these two properties need to meet? I don't think so, but like I said, you could do worse. You could do Run, Sweat, and Fears, where I don't know if anyone really cares to go back to Hellgate Prison, but I
Right.
personally would love to go back to Shady Brook. So at least there was that.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah. Yeah. That facade is just so beautiful. It's a shame that there's some really striking scenes here. It's a shame that it didn't pan out,
Yeah,
but that's okay.
agreed.
Okay, moving on to the scare zones. Billy, give me your 30-second impression of Psychoscurepy Unleashed in New York.
Easily the best one of the year. The one
Okay.
that felt most like a true anniversary year scare. Well,
Mhm.
except with the
That's
exception of one we're about
icons.
to talk about,
Mhm.
the one that felt like a true property brought back from HHN in the way it deserved.
Mhm.
Very reminiscent of 2007 Psychoscurepy, Brain Rot. The one where the winter one where they Home for the Holidays. There we go.
Yeah.
Very reminiscent of that. You got great Shady Brook characters. You had a lot of fun vignettes. And this made sense in the New York area. They didn't really have to do a bunch of added scenic that took you out.
Right.
They just added some fair stands. The characters themselves just had so much fun because they were given the freedom to do essentially whatever. And it was still loosely tied enough to the Jack the Clown lore and mythos that it felt like it fit for the year.
Mhm.
Good New York zone. Maybe top 3 of all time for me.
Okay. Okay. Maybe we can explore that list later on, but
You.
not right now. Right now, we're going to talk about. Give me your brief explanation of Scary Tales and Scream Punk. How did that pan out?
What was the point? Should have
Oh,
been
okay.
better is the way I look at
Mm,
it. The costumes great. Super intricate and detailed. Um it was fun being able to recognize kind of where the characters were from cuz they a chunk of them at least had their classic Disney appearances.
mm.
But it was yeah, we've had scary tales before, but we've never really had anything super steampunk at HHN. Maybe a few haunts or themes here and there, like Saws and Steam. But this didn't feel like scary tales. It just kind of
Mhm.
felt like steampunk. And
Yeah.
being the entry scare zone, it wasn't super impressive or super scary, unfortunately, either. It was a fun time, but like I said, you could have plopped this scare zone in any other year and it would have been just as successful or
Okay.
unsuccessful.
Tack the name on.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. Over in San Francisco, they had All Night Die-In double feature. That looked cool. I know they had two casts with modern monsters and then old-timey black and white
Yes.
monsters. How did it land?
Bigger isn't always better, as I said at the
Oh, okay.
beginning. Yep. Good scare zone, but this felt like you're just IP mismatch of
Mm,
way too many characters.
okay.
Some of the costumes were good, and the ideas, like you just mentioned, with having the black and white classic monsters,
Cool idea.
those were cool, and I liked
Mhm.
that. But also, then you've seen Chucky in the streets before.
Right.
You know how that looks. Freddy and Jason. Too many costumes, too many characters, too many different IPs that didn't make sense. Like I said at the beginning, it's kind of let's see what would be a good idea. Cary, Ohio, the director drive-in, and every character we've ever had from
Like
an
a
IP.
spin the wheel type deal.
Yep,
Mhm.
yep,
Okay.
exactly.
Mhm.
Good zone, not great, not terrible, but just way too much going on for it to be remembered as anything more than just kind of an IP mashup.
Okay. And then finally, the last like anniversary related zone is icons, HHN. So I've seen lots of pictures and video. It seemed like there are plenty of icon henchmen running around, and
Yes.
then there were a handful of stages set up through the area where they would have their like little shows with the classic kills, that the commercial kills throughout. Is that a fair description?
Yep, exactly.
Hmm.
The commercial kills and the kills from 2006's The
Hmm.
Arrival.
Right.
But, take the scenes from icons captured that most of you have probably experienced
Hmm.
and turn each of those scenes into a 2 to 3 minute vignette with live actors. Tons of fun to sit there and watch. You got to see some just campy and incredibly great performances. The ushers lived it up. Like they ate up every night. The Julian Browning wiping the blood,
Hmm.
so much fun. This is what I want to see when I see like anniversary zones and icon zones. I want to see, even if it's scripted, actors being able to just do some crazy stuff on stage. Um, so good.
Right. and the
Very
ability to see these characters without having to wait in a line for a haunted house to really
exactly.
get to interact with all these characters is awesome. So
Yes.
yeah, I wish I could have done this one, and fingers crossed, maybe we'll get something like this in Hollywood in this year.
Watch the videos of it.
Yes. Okay, moving on to the show. Let's keep it brief again. So the Carnage returns, set up in the Mel's Drive-In stage because, of course, Bill and Ted's was in Fear Factor. I've seen videos of this show. It looks pretty good. What'd you think about it?
I said at the beginning that there was one thing I thought this year did better than any other year of HHN, and this is it. It was the Carnage returns. I
Mm,
think having that entertainment in the streets that you can walk by, catch the last 5 minutes of, or wait and watch it 24/7. The Lagoon shows are kind of hidden away to get the good view of it, but take that kind of experience and centralize it in front of Mel's. Almost anytime you would walk by, you could hear Jack the Clown and Chance bantering back and forth. You could walk by and see your favorite kills because there were quite a few in that show. Lots of good practical gore effects as well, and it just felt so quintessentially HHN. One of not just Halloween related, but any type of theme park entertainment shows that I've seen, definitely in the top 3. Jack was just incredibly charismatic, and this was long. This was like a 30-minute show.
yeah.
So this wasn't just, something that this wasn't your Horror Unleashed Jack and
Mhm.
Chance that did a 10-minute thing and rotated. Like, this was a committed long show with a fantastic cast, incredible effects, a good story. One of the victims' name was Amanda, which
Mhm.
Chance said just like that throughout the show. So when me and my wife are talking, I will reference this quite a bit. Amanda. But yes, if you have not watched a video of the Carnage returns, you need to go watch that show right now, because this is what HHN is missing in the current day and age: is entertainment that celebrates HHN and not just uh, the Halloween vibes and the spooky spirit. Um, this is a show that you wouldn't be able to find anywhere else. I don't think Not Scary Farm, as much as I love it, I don't think they could pull something off like this. I don't think your local Six Flags, Cedar Fair, whatever they are now, could pull this off. I truly think this was one of those shows that you're only going to get at HHN with their characters and their sense of humor. And
Mhm.
please write on your surveys that they need to bring something like this back
Yeah.
if we don't get it this year.
I'm hoping to see something similar this year. Yeah, to be honest. Yeah,
I
fingers
think
crossed.
I think we've got some hope with it being in the Fear Factor stage.
Right.
But
Mhm.
said that the vibes of just having such a such a kinetic stage show out in the open for everyone to see and hear as they're strolling by, that's the type of energy that I really miss.
Right. Right. Yeah. And now finally the last piece of anniversary related stuff from 2015 is the first tribute store. So this time, unlike other years where it was in Hollywood, where it was in the New York area, where it was in, all these other places, this was in the Twister gift shop. So
Mhm.
I've seen plenty of pictures of it. It seems like they just kind of emptied out the archives and just toss it in here. So there's all sorts of cool stuff like Lady Luck's wheel, the
Mhm.
Terror Queen chopper, some of which is in Horror Unleashed, some of which is in the Philadelphia exhibit. It seemed cool. Yeah, it didn't
Yeah.
seem like there was as cohesive of a theme as there are now currently, but it seemed like there was a lot more stuff that nerds like you and me might be interested in. Is that fair?
Yep. 100%. It
Mhm.
was cool. It was homey. It's like they took the hollow. It's like they took what they did for the Hollowed Past haunt in
Mhm.
2010 and they turned it into a store. They know that people want to see these props and have these nostalgia trips and this behind the scenes stuff. And they just put a bunch of it and said, oh, also, here's a bunch of merch. It was very
Right.
basic and very rudimentary. And also, something to remember that we haven't really talked about this episode is crowds were a lot less in
Right.
2015.
Right. A decade
There's a
ago.
lot
Mhm.
more there's a lot more room on the streets to be able to walk through, and this tribute store did not have a 900-hour wait to get in on crowded nights, and
Right.
it was never shoulder to shoulder.
Yeah, more time to browse and to
Um,
to really look. Mhm.
Sorry, my earbud cut out.
No, no, you're good. No worries. Yeah, I think that'll wrap up the recap. Billy, give me like a 30-second like final thoughts about the event as an anniversary year specifically.
As an anniversary year specifically, there was too much emphasis on Jack and not enough emphasis on
Mm,
everything else.
okay.
Jack is undeniably charismatic, a force to be reckoned with, a great icon, but he's got to have the platform to do it, which he did in The Carnage Returns and Jack Presents Monsters and Mayhem. But the rest of the lineup seems like it was shoehorned in or forgotten about.
Yeah.
The originals we've talked about, the IPs, we had one really good one in Insidious. The rest of them were just, frankly, in my opinion, not done that well.
Mhm. Yeah. Makes sense. I think it seems like there were some real strong points from the year, but overall, maybe it didn't quite live up to what fans were hoping for, I think. So let's keep our fingers crossed that this year is better than that. But we'll see. We'll find out. Yeah, and that's going to wrap up our HHN 25 recap, our look at the anniversary year previous to HHN 30, which is in 2021. We're going to keep counting down until we get to our current anniversary year this year. But before we do that, let's talk about anything that we've made. Billy, have you made anything that you want to plug? We already talked about your social media, YouTube at SixBillium earlier in the episode, but have you made anything you wanted to show off?
Stay tuned for the next countdown episode next
Yes.
week.
Great.
Whether that's next week from this point in time or next week from the time you're listening to it, I'm not going to tell you. That's the fun part.
Right. Uh-huh. It's an evergreen statement. Hmm. But
What about you, Josh? What you got going on?
oh man, maybe one of these weeks I'll finally release this Japan video. I think it was going to be this week. I don't really have anything going on tomorrow, so I'm hoping to get this edited quickly and then get that Japan video edited, and then yeah, maybe put out something for Horror Unleashed. My trip for the Feaster Bunny, but we'll find out and see. Yeah, and then I think next episode we're gonna record one from on site at Universal Hollywood, talk about FanFest nights in the context of HHN, talk about some HHN construction, and then we're gonna go right back to the HHN 20, the last anniversary before from 2010.
My first year.
Yeah, Billy's first year. We still got some firsthand experience with that, and hopefully have a lot more speculation to talk about at that point. But thanks as always for tuning in. Please come check us out on social media, and until next time, we will see you later.
See y'all.
All right, bye.